Talking Trees with Lily and Jad. Welcome to Arboriculture Today, your go-to podcast dedicated to the fascinating world of trees. Join your hosts, Jad and Lily, as they delve into the science, art, and practice of caring for these magnificent living beings. Today's topic is the European Arboricultural Standards, with a focus on the first issue, tree pruning. We'll provide a basic overview of this essential practice, which we'll explore in more detail in upcoming episodes. Let's get started.
All right, everybody, welcome back. It's time for another deep dive.
Yeah, looking forward to this one.
So, sometimes I think about like walking down the street and you see a tree and it's like been totally butchered.
Oh,
like somebody went at it with a chainsaw and we're like, that's not how you prune a tree.
Right.
So it got me kind of interested in, like how do we take care of trees, especially in our cities, and how do we make sure that they're like healthy and they're going to be around for a long time and we're not, ruining them by accident.
Right.
And so I found this really cool project happening in Europe all about standardizing tree care. And I thought we should dive into it.
Yeah, let's hear about it.
Okay, so basically it's called the European Arboricultural Standards, or EAS. And it's this really ambitious project to create a unified approach to tree care across Europe.
Wow.
So we're talking about everything from how you plant a tree, how you prune it, how you even protect trees during construction, like when you're doing work around them.
Yeah. Okay, so it's not just about keeping trees looking nice. It's really thinking about the whole life of a tree and making sure it thrives.
Exactly. And especially in cities, right, where you have like limited space and, all these different things going on, it's really important to have like a good plan for how you're going to manage your trees.
So how does this EAS thing actually work? Like, who's in charge of it?
Well, that's the cool part. It's not like one country or organization calling all the shots.
Okay.
It's actually a collaboration between a bunch of different countries and experts in the field.
Interesting.
So they have like these two main projects within the EAS. There's something called TEST, which stands for Technical Standards in Tree Work.
I see.
And then there's ECoST, which is European Consulting Standards in Tree Work.
So TEST is like the actual doing and ECoST is more of the thinking and planning.
Yeah, exactly. It's like TEST is a how-to guide and ECoST is like the consultant coming in and saying, okay, here's what you need to do.
Right. That makes sense.
And get this, they had 11 different countries involved in developing the technical standards alone. 11 different countries all coming together to try to figure out like the best practices for taking care of trees.
That's pretty impressive to get that many countries to agree on something.
Right. And it wasn't just some top-down thing where they were like, this is how it's going to be.
Yeah.
They actually had all these experts from different countries working together, comparing their own national standards and practices. And they even had public consultations. So they got feedback from people who were actually out there working with trees every day.
So they really wanted to make sure that these standards were actually going to be useful and applicable in the real world.
Exactly. And then based on that feedback, they went back and revised the standards to make sure they were as good as they could be.
That's really cool. Like they were really committed to making this work.
Yeah. And they're still it's like an ongoing project. So they're constantly updating and refining the standards as they learn more.
So it's not just like a one and done type of deal.
Nope. This is a long-term commitment to improving tree care across Europe.
That's amazing. I'm curious to hear more about like what kind of specific standards they came up with.
Well, one example is the European Tree Pruning Standard.
Okay.
And can you believe 14 different countries contributed expertise to this one standard?
Wow, 14.
14. That just goes to show how much collaboration went into this whole thing.
That's really impressive.
Like imagine trying to get 14 people to agree on what to have for dinner, let alone 14 countries to agree on how to prune a tree.
Right, exactly.
But they did it. And they even encourage translations of the standard so it can be accessible to people in different languages.
That's really smart because not everyone speaks English or whatever the main language of the standard is.
Right. They really want to make sure that this information is available to as many people as possible.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's not just about creating these standards in a vacuum. It's about making sure that they're actually used and implemented by people on the ground.
So this all sounds really great, but why should people care? Like, why is it important to have standardized tree care?
Well, for one thing, healthier trees mean a healthier planet, right?
Right.
Like trees absorb carbon dioxide, they help to clean the air, they provide shade, they prevent erosion, all these amazing things.
Yeah.
And when you have standardized tree care, it helps to ensure that trees are as healthy as possible so they can do all those things even better.
That makes sense.
Plus, it can actually save money in the long run, because if you're taking good care of your trees, they're less likely to get sick or damaged, which means you don't have to spend as much money on removing them or treating them or replacing them.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So it's not just good for the environment, it's good for our wallets too.
Right.
And then there's also the whole aesthetic aspect of it. Like, let's be honest, well-maintained trees just look nicer.
Yeah, they do.
They make our cities and towns more pleasant places to live and work.
Yeah.
And they can even increase property values.
That's true.
So there are all these tangible benefits to having standardized tree care. But I think there's also something to be said for the intangible benefits, like just the feeling of being surrounded by healthy, thriving trees.
Yeah, I agree.
Like it's good for the soul, you know?
It is.
And I think that's something that we often overlook in our busy urban lives.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So, yeah, I think the European Arboriculture Standards are a really cool example of how we can use collaboration and innovation to create a healthier, more beautiful world.
Yeah, definitely. And it makes you wonder, like, could this kind of approach be replicated in other parts of the world?
Totally. Like, imagine if we had global standards for tree care.
That would be amazing.
Right. It could have such a huge impact on the environment and on our quality of life.
Yeah, and it would be really interesting to see how different cultures and regions would approach tree care in their own unique ways while still adhering to some basic standards.
Absolutely. It would be a fascinating blend of like global unity and local diversity.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely something to think about the next time you're walking down the street and you see a tree.
Yeah, for sure.
Whether it's a well-maintained tree or one that looks like it needs a little TLC.
Right.
It's a reminder that we all have a role to play in taking care of our urban forests.
Absolutely.
And that by working together, we can create a greener, healthier future for everyone.
Well said.
All right, folks, that's another deep dive in the books.
Until next time.
Thanks for tuning into Arboriculture Today. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Stay with us and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. If you want to catch an episode every single day, support us at www.herohero.co/talkingtrees. Join the community and let's keep growing together.